The the meeting this evening will be in two parts. The first part will be a public hearing for our budgets for our charter schools. And anyone interested in testifying to that will be in that first part of the meeting. The second part of the meeting, then, we will restart the meeting into our regular community college meeting. So with that explanation, I would like to call the public hearing of the Maricopa County Community College District Governing Board. The district will this evening consider the adoption of the proposed budgets for Gateway Early College High School and Phoenix College Preparatory Academy for 2016 and 2017. I'd like to ask the Associate Vice Chancellor of Business Services, Ms. Kim Granillo, to present the budgets under consideration.
Thank you. Mr. President and members of the board, we are required to secure adoption of the charter high school budgets by July 15th of each year. Tonight's hearing follows a June board meeting to approve the budgets, posting of the budgets on the charter school board website, and public notification of adoption. Actual adoption is scheduled during tonight's business meeting. At this time, I'd like to ask Gateway Early College High School Principal Lisa Smith and Phoenix College Preparatory Academy Principal Keith Brown to summarize their respective fiscal year 16-17 budgets.
Ms. Smith.
Good evening.
Excuse me, Ms. Smith and Mr. Brown. Are you doing this together, or are you doing that sequentially?
Sequentially, I think.
Yes.
Right, Ms. Smith, then.
Good evening, President Gutierrez, esteemed board members, CEC members. Thank you for letting me present tonight. Okay, so our budget for 2017 is going to be based on pretty much the same student count in ADM, our average daily membership, which is the number of students times their attendance rate. So the state this year for 2017 increased the state base funding per student. That went up about $200 a student. Additional assistance, which is the money that charter schools get, because we don't have the ability to bond, we don't have the ability to do overrides, all of that thing. That's the money to try and make up for that. Excuse me. Last year they instituted a small school cut, and they reduced the amount this much this year that they're taking back away from us. So that was also good news. Prop 301 is the same this year. It's $295 per student. So overall, our state-based funding went up. That's mostly due to Prop 123, additional assistance, state equalization, our funding went up. The instructional improvement money there, it went down slightly. That's the money that's given to us from tribal gaming taxes. And so when that goes up and down, then our funding for that goes up and down as well. We suspect that our Title I funding will go up this year, and that's mostly based on our free and reduced lunch numbers. Last year, we had come down to about 93%, and we think that we're going to be back up to about 96% free and reduced lunch, so that increases that funding. That's pretty much in a nutshell.
Any questions by the board? Thank you, Ms. Smith. Mr. Brown?
President Gutierrez, members of the board, CEC members, thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit about the budget at Phoenix College Preparatory Academy. We have been fortunate enough this year to appeal to the charter board to go up in terms of our numbers, and they have agreed to that enrollment increase. So the 135 for this year that we're budgeting is a 35% increase based on getting that increase in our enrollment. We were at 103 last year, our ADM, and we were capped out and had a waiting list for the last 2 years. So the additional funds that you see in our budget are mostly because of the additional students and the additional revenues. Our college tuition has gone up, as well as Title I, and the different areas of our travel and bus passes and things like that. But basically, our budget is pretty solid this year because of the additional students and the additional funding, which makes our total budget down at the bottom 1.1 thereabouts compared to the year before. We will be having to hire 4 new teachers next year and some staff this year as well. But basically, our budget, because of the additional students and the additional revenues, have helped our situation tremendously.
Questions by the board? Mr. Sarr, then Mr. Berg.
You brought up the concept of tuition. Now, you pay the district tuition for those classes that your students take at our campus.
Yes, sir.
That was a $2 increase. Was that what you were talking about when you say tuition increases?
Well, we budget, like this year, our budget is $105,000 for college classes for our students, which we pay the district for those classes that our students take. Whatever, the $2 increase or whatever it is, we pay that.
So in your budget, and I know we've gotten the detail, and I don't have it in front of me, that number is bigger than last year because you've got more students taking more classes,
Yes.
obviously, as well.
Correct.
Which
Last
is,
year it was 88,000, this year it's 105.
and Mrs. Smith, I think you got the same situation, which is not a bad thing. I mean,
Right.
we want your students to be able to take college level coursework throughout their, especially their junior and senior years. So the fact that those costs are going up means that your instructional cost on your campuses it goes down because you're paying basically the college to take those students for that time period.
Correct.
It's a little bit more complicated than a normal school district, but you're not a normal school district. So, and that's one of the missions that you both have in your charter schools. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Ms. McGrath.
Thank you. Mr. Rob, what kind of rent does the school pay to the college for the facilities you use?
Because we're one of the programs at Phoenix College, they consider us one of the programs like culinary or any other program that they have. We don't pay rent right now.
So you have an advantage over other charter schools because they all pay rent, but you don't have to, right?
Well, basically, that's where we can fund college tuition and things like that, is because of not having to pay rent. That's what we probably wouldn't be able to do if we did pay rent.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Thank you all very much. This now is an opportunity for the public to address the governing board concerning the proposed charter school budgets. Is there anyone who wishes to address the board? Hearing none, I therefore will conclude the public hearings for the adoption of 2016-2017 proposed budget for the 2 charter schools and call to order the regular board meeting. So, this gets pretty confusing. So, I calling this to order again. Good evening again. You deserve to get 2 good evenings because we were late. The first thing we're going to do is announce substitutes. Kim Granillo for Vice Chancellor Debbie Thompson, Janet Ortega for Sherry Olson, Brianna Bendotti for President Jean Giovannini, Colleen O'Neill for President Jan Gaylor, Terry Leva Ruiz for President Irene Kovala, Cassandra Kakar for Interim President Chris Haynes, David O'Shea for Chris Bustamante, President Chris Bustamante at Rio, Veronica Garcia for President Paul Dale of Paradise Valley, Patty Cardenas Adame for Ernie Lara, President Ernie Lara at EMC. We have no college reports or faculty executive council reports today. We do have an adjunct faculty association report. Mr. Valverde. Okay, we'll do that next. Since Mr. Valverde is not here, we're going to ask Mr. Sarr to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Going to Emeritus Awards. Emeritus Awards and Recognition for Mesa Community College. Dr. Hassan, would you care to speak to these awards for Mesa Community College?
Mr. President and members of the board, CEC.
Would you use your microphone, please?
Can you hear me now? Is that better? Okay. Mr. President, members of the board, CEC, and guests, I'd like to call forward Dr. Rodney Holmes, Acting Vice President of Academic Affairs at MCC, to conduct the emeritus distinction. Thank you.
Dr. Holmes.
I'd like to thank Board President Gutierrez, the board, CEC members, and all the substitutes for the opportunity to have this great honor of presenting an Emeritus Award to one Mike Hewitt. Mike Hewitt is a 25-year residential faculty member plus another 5 years around the district as an adjunct. He was a department chair for reading for a number of years. He served as the instructional council chair. He was a leader in the different agendas that we had through reading and developmental ed. I think we could all agree that reading is the foundation skill for success anywhere. And so the reading departments are extremely important around the district. And one of the things that Mike has done at the end of his career is he was able to hire several dynamic reading instructors that will carry Mesa for the next 25, 30 years as we focus on student success in different generations of students that we can't even predict are going to come to us. So with great honor, I'd like to present this award and have Mike come up and say a few words.
President Gutierrez, members of the governing board, CEC members, friends and fellow Maricopans, thank you for awarding me the emeritus status. I personally think this is a wonderful way to not only honor the service of retired employees, but it's also an effective way to keep us connected to the extended Maricopa family that has been such an important part of our lives for so many years. I'm happy to report that I'm still part of this family, part-time anyway. I've been tutoring at Mesa's Academic Skills Center since my retirement in 2013. This has been a nice segue, a nice way to move on without completely moving out. I would enthusiastically encourage all retired Maricopans to continue serving by sharing their unique talents and expertise with their respective colleges. After all, when you get right down to it, continued commitment is not only an assurance of a successful future for the district, but it's the very essence of the Maricopa Way itself. Thank you very much. Again, thank you for a fantastic 25 years.
Mr. Sung.
Before you go, just you made a good point, and I think everybody should know that first of all, retirement's way overrated, and the fact that you kind of continue on and you apply your talents to our students in ways that really make a difference. I applaud you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you.
Further discussion? Dr. Gonzalez, would you speak to the awards from Gateway Community College?
Yes, sir. May I approach the podium?
Yes, of course.
Good evening, President Gutierrez, members of the board, CEC, guest here tonight. I would like to have it noted for the record that I'm the only regular president here tonight. I'm not sure if I didn't get invited to something or I'm still new enough to be naive in some way. But I'm here nevertheless. It's an important night. I'm actually here to celebrate the retirement of two professors. We have three that are on the agenda, but one will be celebrated next month, and that's Mr. John Lampiano. Tonight I have Professor Dean Stover and Professor Vince Huffman that we would like to recognize. And so I have some things that I would like to read here. Professor Huffman transferred to Gateway Community College in 2005 as a residential faculty member, returning to an anthropology program he initiated in 1994 while still an adjunct, and working to further expand their curriculum. He also developed the social work transfer program, the only transfer program in the liberal arts division. At its peak, it saw 35 declared majors enrolled in a single term. Prior to Gateway, Professor Vince Huffman held several positions that helped to shape the type of professor he would eventually become. He began his career as an educator and a social worker. From 1982 to 1988, Professor Huffman taught as a faculty associate in Indiana, Purdue University in Indianapolis, where he introduced and taught new 200 and 400 level courses, the anthropology of aging. His career in social work began with Indiana's Adult Protective Services, where he investigated over 1,300 cases of elder abuse and neglect, and then as executive assistant to the governor of Indiana, where he oversaw health and wellness for older adults. Because of his work in his latter role, the state of Indiana was recognized by the Office of the Surgeon General with an award for innovation in health and wellness and disease prevention. In 1996, Professor Huffman was hired as a program director at Scottsdale Community College. There he worked with staff and instructional faculty to develop the largest and most comprehensive adult learning program in the nation. He also secured Piper Foundation funding in order to develop Next Chapter, a program that supports the personal growth and development of older adults. During his time, he also completed the Maricopa Community College Leadership Academy. In 2007, while at Gateway, Professor Huffman was awarded grant funding through the MCLI to support the integration of genographic analysis for students enrolled in his ASM 104, Bones, Stones, and Human Evolution courses. Using genomic analysis testing supplied by the National Geographic, students traced their DNA sequences back through time and through common ancestry. The results invariably led students to see racial division as a social construct more than a biological fact. Along with two honor students, Professor Huffman presented on the genographic analysis at the annual conference for the American Anthropological Association in 2008. Professor Huffman has also been involved in bringing notable guest speakers to Gateway's campus, including Mark Friedman, Berkeley professor and author of the book Next Chapter, and Ella Alder, a Holocaust survivor who delivered her last public talk on her experiences to a packed auditorium of Gateway students. For 2 years, Professor Huffman represented Maricopa Community College District on the ASU Articulation Committee, and he volunteered to chair and host several of these statewide meetings. With this, tonight, I would like to invite up Professor Huffman to receive this honor and to congratulate him and to let him know that he's already missed on campus. He's been a good friend in the short time that I've been there, and one of the wise sages that I turn to when I've got questions and need some guidance and direction. Congratulations, Vince.
President Gutierrez, members of the board, the CEC, the substitutes, with the exception of Dr. Gonzalez. I'm compelled to, number one, thank you. This is a tremendous honor. Thank you all. I'm reminded of the humility that my religious communities brought to me for the latter part of my life, the last 30 years, and an obligation that I have to make a statement as I accept this gracious award. I think the hallmark accomplishment with my body of work has been indeed with National Geographic. And the fact that we effectively demonstrated to over 1,100 students using genomic analysis that the biggest and the most divisive myth that we're taught in our lifetime is that the biological reality of race is real. Folks, it's not. It's a complete illusion that most of us are taught by age 3. Anthropologists knew this forever. We knew that everywhere we'd go, that every culture had a different measuring stick for what they called race, and still do. But to affirm it using science has been profound in the classroom. I can say with relative certainty that the 1,100 students who did genographic analysis with National Geographic will never, ever teach the divisiveness of negative prejudice or racism to their children. This comes to us at a time when division and polarity is again raising its ugly head and becoming more profound in our society, increasingly more profound. And as a Quaker, my religious beliefs are affiliated with the Religious Society of Friends, the Quaker community, going all the way back to the 1660s in England. We've been compelled to speak truth to power with love and compassion. And hence the statement, I would hope that my work with MCLI, with National Geographic, with the support of the college, and mostly my students, that there would be a lesson to be learned that could be taken forth, that the illusions of myths come and go. The realities reveal themselves at opportunistic times, that we have a choice. We all have a choice to learn from science, to learn from humanity, to learn from faith, and to be on the right side of history. A point of reflection is that 171 years ago, a treaty, the Treaty of San Guadalupe Hidalgo, pretty much resolved the immigration issue with Mexico. There was a lot of land that would become the land of the newfound America. The compromise was that all Mexican people who are indeed American Indians would have a choice to be citizens. And we've been fighting that battle a lot for a very long time. It's a battle that's already been resolved. One of the historical parameters that we taught in class that became part of a learning modality with National Geographic as we took our paradigm at Gateway and extended it into classrooms around the nation and indeed around the world, so that when my students accessed data banks, that they would actually know the students they met on the internet to examine who they thought they were most related to, but they weren't. We couldn't find a single genetic marker within a population anyone ever called a race that appeared in any other population we called a race. All we found essentially is that of the small differences one to the other, and we as humans are 99.2% genetically identical. all we found is that the differences, genetically speaking, biologically speaking, are within the groups we call races, and not between the groups we call races. One would think it would be the other way around. It's not. My request, I've said it before this body a few times, is that in your policy making, that you would go forth on the right side of science, on the right side of multiculturalism, on the right side of history. And I say this again from my religious foundation, and it was a condition of my accepting this award, which I greatly appreciate. It's a gracious, affirming award. And it too, as with my colleague, leaves me with a connectedness that I never want to relinquish. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Huffman. I would now like to recognize Professor Dean Stover. Dean Stover has over 20 years of teaching English, humanities, and religion at Gateway Community College, having taught almost 4,000 students in that time. In the 90s, he was part of the FIPSE grant for problem-solving based learning, was part of developing learning communities at Gateway, and initiated creative writing awards for students. He served on the English Instructional Council for 7 years and was chair of that IEC for 2 years. He served as chair of the Liberal Arts Division for 2 years. On sabbatical, he developed the first religion courses taught at Gateway. He was selected for a MIL Fellowship for the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning in 2003 and continued to support SOTL as a faculty in residence at MCLI for several years, for which he received a NISOT Award of Excellence. He served in the Faculty Senate for 10 years, including 2 years as Faculty Senate President. In support of the 2010 HLC accreditation, he served as a co-coordinator for assessing general education outcomes across the college. He wrote many MCLI learning grants to bring creative writers to campus to read at the Student Award Ceremony, and helped start a series, Gateway to the Arts, that continues to bring professional art groups to campus, such as the Phoenix Symphony and Desert Dance Company. He has kept active in professional development by attending and or presenting conferences every year of his career. In the last few years, he has focused on the importance of the arts and creativity in teaching and learning and culture. He coordinated an Arts and Creative Campus STEM to STEAM plus Health lecture series supported by the college's Leadership Innovation Grants. Due to this lecture series, several things have happened. First, he led a team to develop an Arts and Healthcare certificate that focuses on bringing arts into healthcare settings to promote wellness. If approved, this certificate will be the first of its kind offered at a community college in the nation. Second, the series inspired Gateway administration to develop a makerspace in downtown Phoenix, and Dean helped develop the plans for that space. Third, Gateway began offering STEAM summer camps for middle school students. Mr. Stover has earned an emeritus distinction by demonstrating a commitment to teaching and learning at the highest level. He has served as a mentor and a guide to many students as they become more educated citizens, and to faculty, having his big picture perspective and his commitment to the importance of being involved in shared governance. Finally, Mr. Stover has enjoyed the camaraderie of colleagues across the district, demonstrating what it means to have a love of life, of teaching and learning. And Dean has also been a good friend over the last few years, and another wise sage on campus that is already missed, and it will just be a little strange not having these gentlemen on campus come fall semester. So we hope that you come back to visit us on a regular basis. So congratulations, Dean, come on up.
Well, I didn't really know I was going to have a chance to talk tonight, so I will say that I think my career shows that the importance of faculty being involved in shared governance, and we do a lot of the administrative work at a college that I don't know if everybody understands how much work we do, and that's part of the reason why we need more full-time faculty at colleges. And I hope the governing board can support that, because that creates the community for our students, that's not there if it's more adjunct faculty. We are the ones who provide support not only for administration but for all our students. And part of the reason why I started getting involved in the arts so much was because Gateway has never received a performing arts center, the only college not to. And so we're still hoping that we receive some kind of performing arts spaces at Gateway that include dance and theater and other things, arts that support those students who need those kind of lessons, activities, and outlets. So the last 2 years have really been focused on the importance of the arts and creativity. I've met with a lot of people like Stephen Tepper, who's a dean of the Arts and Humanities program at ASU, who's done a lot of research on the importance of arts and creativity, that it keeps students in college, it keeps them focused, and it keeps them successful. And by having more full-time faculty at colleges and also getting more students in the arts, that you're going to improve your retention and your graduation rates. So I hope that all of you will keep supporting the arts. We have in the fall the Arts and Healthcare Certificate that we hope the governing board will support and approve because we think it's the cutting edge. We're joining forces with Mayo Clinic and people like they're holding a November symposium on the importance of arts in healthcare, and that we need the arts in healthcare to provide a better range of services for all those people. And it's not just getting their needs met medically, but it's also emotionally and psychologically. And so I hope the governing board will approve that in the future, because we think it is the future for Arizona and making it better for all of people who need health care. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Leyva Ruiz, would you speak in the awards from Glendale Community College?
Thank you, President Gutierrez. May I approach the podium?
Yes, ma'am.
President Gutierrez, members of the governing board, and CEC, and all of our substitutes, including myself. It is my honor and pleasure to present 2 members of our faculty for emeritus status, and I don't see either of them here, so I'd like to speak to them just briefly about them. The first is Ms. Suzanne Murray. Suzanne has served for over 30 years in the Business and Information Technology Department, and in her time, she's known as an innovator and one who has helped bring about both open entry and open exit courses way back in the time when these were brand new. Many of the contributions Sue gave to the GCC BIT department were in the spirit of academic innovation and utilization and access to technology as part of learning, business, and technology topics. Her expertise in the area of office technology still remains an important asset to the BIT department as she continues to serve as a member of our adjunct faculty. And it is with great pride and appreciation that the BIT department nominates her for this status. And unfortunately, Suzanne is not here. Our next member is Ann Dudley. Ann Dudley has served over 25 years in the GCC Mathematics Department. I had the great pleasure of serving with Ann on the Math Instructional Council, and I know Ann to be a strong leader and advocate for both of our students and our community and our college. She has held several positions in the National American Mathematical Association of Two-Year Colleges and has won the prestigious Teaching Excellence Award that is given only every other year to only one person. She has published a math textbook and has given many presentations to faculty across the country as well as here at home. Locally, she has served on budget, hiring, curriculum, and professional growth committees, both at the college and the district level. She was one of the best instructors in the math department and is greatly missed. So we present to you Ms. Ann Dudley. Again, unfortunately not here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is citizens interim. Citizen interim is an opportunity for the public to address the governing board. Do we have any requests, Ms. Smith? We have no requests. Is that correct? Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to? If not, we will go on. The next item is the board president report. Frankly, the report is simply a recognition that this would have been, had she been here, Ms. Deborah Thompson's final meeting. She has retired from the district. Ms. Thompson, for those of you who don't know, was the vice chancellor for business affairs. And in fact, has been with the district 26 years in one fashion or another, overseeing budgets. She was the person in charge of those budgets during the sort of the toughest period this district has gone through. Loss of state funds, while simultaneously guiding a $1 billion bond program, construction program, overseeing that, and doing so pretty incredibly successful. This district retains a AAA bond rating. We retain a AAA rating even in the face of all of the legislative cuts that we have faced. And that to no small measure is because of Ms. Thompson. I'm sorry she isn't here, but I want to wish her well. I think all of us who've worked with her or have been denied funds by her will wish her well, even in spite of that, because you really recognize what a extraordinary human being and an extraordinary commitment to this district that she had. We are going to miss her.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Burke.
I would like to take opportunity to add thanks for what Ms. Thompson has brought to this district. For a person who spent most of his life with split infinitives, I can tell you that she helped a great deal. When I had questions, made appointments with her, she was very gracious and very patient and very helpful in explaining budget items through the years. And I'm very grateful for her work, and I want to publicly say that.
Thank you.
I would also like to say that Mrs. Thompson was extremely helpful to me. I didn't quite understand the tax structure, and she spent an hour in the office going through it with me, and I still haven't mastered it, but I appreciated that she gave it a good try. And also other matters came up, and I had questions about different matters that I was confused on, and she was extremely helpful to me on every single one, even during her vacation time. So I will miss her. She was a wonderful lady.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the Chancellor's report. Acting Chancellor, Acting Chancellor, Vice Chancellor LaCoya Shelton Johnson. Vice Chancellor.
Thank you, President Gutierrez and members of the board. At this time, I'd like to invite Ryan Demena to the podium to provide the legislative update.
Thank you. President Gutierrez, members of the board, Vice Chancellor Shelton Johnson, members of CEC, and all others present, I'm here this evening to provide you with the final legislative update of 2016. Arizona's 52nd legislature, second regular session, concluded its work at 5:45 a.m. on Saturday, May 7th, after a marathon of voting. The legislative session lasted 117 days, which is certainly much longer than last year's 81-day session. In total, lawmakers introduced 1,247 legislative proposals. Of those introduced, 388 received legislative approval and were transmitted to Governor Ducey for his signature. Of those transmitted to the governor, 14 pieces of legislation were vetoed. The general effective date for these new laws, unless noted otherwise, is August 6, 2016, just over a month away. Lawmakers also managed to introduce 114 memorials and resolutions, of which 36 received legislative approval. In my last update, I was very pleased to announce the expenditure limitation legislation, Senate Bill 1322, passed out of the House of Representatives by a vote of 39 ayes, 18 nays, and 3 not voting. The bill was signed by Governor Ducey on March 24th and is now Laws 2016, Chapter 58. It's worth noting that a policy change of this magnitude often takes more than one legislative session to accomplish. But I want to take a moment to thank everyone involved in this effort. The leadership of this district, coupled with the leadership of other districts across the state, made this success possible. This coordinated team effort across the state's community college systems helped ensure that these important changes became law. In previous reports to the board, I mentioned legislation introduced by Representatives Anthony Kern and Paul Boyer, attempting to address free speech on university and community college campuses. Both of these bills became law, but it is my understanding that revisions to the district's policies in this area will not conflict with the enacted changes. I also mentioned the issue of guns on campus legislation, and this year there are roughly 10 of these bills. The debate this year focused on House Bill 2338. As originally introduced, this bill would prohibit the governing board of an educational institution from banning the possession of a concealed weapon in the person's vehicle on a right-of-way. The bill was amended, however, to exclude property of an educational institution. This legislation also received the governor's signature. Lawmakers also tackled the fiscal year 2017 state budget, and as you know, the budget did not include a resumption of state support for the Maricopa or Pima community college districts. Finally, it's worth noting that the May special election on Proposition 123 occurred only 10 days after the conclusion of the legislative session. While Prop 123 received the approval of Arizona voters, the measure passed by less than 20,000 votes. The 2017 legislative session begins in roughly 6 months, and the Demena team has started identifying a menu of issues to tackle in 2017. We look forward to prioritizing these items with district leadership. Demena Associates is proud to represent the Maricopa Community College District at the Arizona Legislature. We look forward to continuing our work with the district, and with that, I'm happy to stand for any questions you may have.
Questions, comments? Thank you very much, Mr. Demena.
Thank you, sir.
The next item is Vice Chancellor's report. Vice Chancellor Shelton Johnson.
Thank you, President Gutierrez, members of the board. As tonight marks the last update that the board will hear or receive from an individual employee group, it's an opportune time to provide an update as we continue the transformation to the Unified Classified Staff Council, better known as CSC, which is the new permanent body of classified staff representatives. As you know, the One Maricopa Workforce Committee was a transitional body consisting of employee group leadership from the legacy employee groups. Among their many tasks was to develop a constitution and bylaws for consideration by the duly elected members of CSC. The bylaws and constitution outline the manner in which the CSC will function in an effort toward continual improvement of the employee experience and so that all employees are able to perform at their best and in order to help our students succeed. The recommended constitution and bylaws, with several modifications along the way, were ultimately presented to the CSC as a whole. Last week, the CSC formally adopted the Constitution and bylaws through a consensus voting process, and starting in July, the CSC will become official. Members of the CSC also recently completed a significant portion of their required training courses, each course designed to ensure that the members are well positioned with the necessary knowledge and skills to carry out their duties and that they are well supported by the institution as they step into their new roles. CSC will elect its officers over the next month or so. Once this has occurred, CSC will begin to provide regular updates to the governing board. As this council continues to settle in, the One Maricopa Policy Subcommittee continues its work updating and unifying policies to present as final recommendations. Interests by policy topic have been and continue to be solicited from employees. Through leveraging technology, employees can provide feedback on a policy topic. Interests are sought multiple times throughout the policy modification and generation process, specifically via online questionnaires, surveys, and in-person sessions. Specifically, 10 of those were held over the past 2 weeks. And they were held all throughout the district with just under 400 employees in attendance. The feedback received is provided to the Policy Committee for consideration and further modifications. During the coming months, we look forward to hearing from the CSE officers once they've been elected. So respected governing board members, you can expect to see Classified Staff Council report added to future agendas once these officers have been elected. I would like to once again take this opportunity to thank the members, past and present, of the One Maricopa Workforce Committee for their fearless leadership, tireless work, and commitment to bringing this transformation to fruition. These employees truly embody the spirit of innovation, courage, and brilliance. Also, I would like to thank the newly elected Classified Staff Council representatives for their engagement, energy, and positive outlook regarding the future of the Maricopa workforce. And a final thank you to all of the Maricopa employees who participated in the election process and who have taken the time to provide constructive feedback that serves to improve this work. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me say, Vice Chancellor, as you know, I have great hesitation of proceeding in this fashion. And I think there's going to have to be great scrutiny of this process. Collapsing a variety of groups into this one entity representing thousands of employees of so disparate skill sets, interests, demands, and needs seems to me to be short-sighted. I have real doubts. On the other hand, I can count, and I recognize that the majority of this board wanted to proceed forward in this fashion. But I think we proceed forward. I just want everyone to know with scrutinizing this transition to be sure that it works as it has been depicted to work. As you know, there are many, many employees who were vehemently opposed. They did not constitute the majority, I am certain of that. At least there may be a silent majority out there that didn't speak out, but those who did were a relatively small group and had a very narrow interest. My concern isn't theirs. My concern is sort of that everyone in this district have the ability to speak out in an organized fashion and the ability to reach this board, to reach the chancellor, to reach the appropriate vice chancellor for a reasonable conversation, and that they not be sort of subsumed by a larger amorphous group. So we'll see how this works out. We will be looking over your shoulder.
Well, that is a position I'm quite used to, but believe it or not. We welcome that, President Gutierrez and members of the board. We welcome that type of scrutiny and engagement, frankly. We're appreciative of that engagement so that we can refine as we need to going forward to make sure that the model does work and that no employee voice is minimized or silenced. Yeah, thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, the next item on the agenda is employee constituency group reports. Ms. Chris Bliss for the MAT employee group.
Good evening, President Gutierrez, members of the board, members of CEC, guests and colleagues. I'm here to provide a report as the last MAT employee group president for Maricopa. I've had the tremendous opportunity to be a member of MAT since 2008. And have been involved with the MAT Executive Council, MEC, starting as MESA's MAT president in 2009. My current term as MAT president ends on June 30th of this year, so Thursday. I've had many opportunities to make connections, to network with colleagues, and for personal and professional growth while being an active advocate for MAT employees. It hasn't always been easy, but knowing I've played a role in helping my fellow employees move forward has been rewarding. For the past year, the entire length of my term as MAC president, the employee groups have been going through a metamorphosis, going from 5 separate employee groups, emerging into one united employee group, going forward known collectively as classified staff. This process has had its own challenges, including the need for a complete change of mindset and way of doing business. all employees, faculty and adjunct faculty included, will need to work together rather than against one another. This is how we will remain strong and unified. I ran and was elected by my colleagues across the district as a representative from my home institution of Mesa Community College to the new Classified Staff Council. I'm humbled and honored to be a part of this change. I was talking to a fellow Maricopa employee recently, and she referred to all these changes as the start of the new Maricopa, maybe Maricopa 2.0. I'm excited thinking about the opportunities that lay ahead for all Maricopa employees as we move forward. At all the forums, meetings, and trainings I have attended as a CSC member and as MAP president, I have been struck by the engagement and passion for and by employees. Employees who have participated, even those who came in with preconceived ideas, have walked away, maybe not with changed minds, but with a greater understanding of the process and why we are moving in this direction. There is something floating about I haven't experienced in Maricopa, a sense of possibility and potential. I would be remiss if I didn't have a quote to share, because that's kind of my thing. It's kind of long, so bear with me. Trying obstacles in turbulent waters will come up for all of us, but how we react to them is what matters most. A small ship in a large, endless ocean seems insignificant, but braving the waves not only allows the ship to sail on, it alters the entire ocean. Our individual effort may seem trivial, but the rippling effect we each make on the world is immeasurable. Approach life's greatest challenges with your fullest conviction and keep moving forward. We need to trust the process, trust employees, and keep Maricopa moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bliss. Questions? Thank you, Ms. Bliss. We now move to the order of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the order of the agenda?
I so move.
Second? It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. The first item is the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to remove any items from the consent agenda?
I move approval.
Is there a second?
I second it.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. The non-consent agenda, item 15, business services, adoption of proposed Gateway Early College High School budget. We have heard the hearing earlier today on this item. Is there a motion?
I move it.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. 15.2, adoption of the proposed Phoenix College Preparatory Academy budget. You have heard the hearing on this matter as well. Is there a motion?
I move approval.
Is there a second?
I second.
Motion has been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 15.3, approve the purchase order to provide centralized fire alarm monitoring district-wide. Ms. Granio, would you care to comment?
Certainly, Mr. President, members of the board. District-wide, we have 261 fire panels which require round-the-clock monitoring per state and local fire code. Currently, our panels are monitored by a combination of public safety personnel on site and third-party monitoring services. The most recent fire code updates now establish minimum staffing and training requirements for such work. After identifying and evaluating 3 options to meet these new requirements, approval is sought to centralize all monitoring of fire alarms to District Public Safety Communications Center. This purchase order will affect this change and will further support Maricopa's efforts to centralize and expand district-wide communications with all other jurisdictions. We recommend its approval.
You've heard the discussion. Is there any questions? If not, is there a motion?
Move approval.
Is there a second? Second. Motion is moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 15.4, approve job order contracting purchasing order for women's locker room remodel at Glendale Community College. Ms. Granillo.
Mr. President, members of the board, this purchase order in the amount of $402,520 is to remodel the women's locker rooms in the Fitness and Wellness Building at the Glendale Community College. The existing locker room will be reconfigured to include changing in meeting space, replace worn floor tile, replace undersized lockers, provide restroom and shower facilities, along with other useful features. This work is intended to provide equal accommodations for female and male athletes to bring us into compliance with Title IX requirements, and we recommend its approval.
You've heard the presentation. Is there any discussion? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item is item number 16, Human Resources, approving the Chancellor's contract. Vice Chancellor Shelton Johnson, would you care to comment?
Thank you, President Gutierrez, members of the board. It is recommended and requested that the governing board approve the employment contract for Chancellor Harper Marinick for 3 years commencing on May 4th.
You've heard the presentation. We will hear the motion and then open for any discussion. Is there a motion?
I move approval.
Is there a second?
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. We are now open for discussion. Is there any discussion?
Ms.
Mr.
Johnson, this is a public document, right?
The contract? I'll have to, yes, it is.
Will it be online, available to the public?
I'm going to defer to my colleague, Interim General Counsel Maggie McConnell.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Saar, no, it won't be. This is not a standard practice, generally speaking, but anyone who wishes to have a copy of it is certainly capable of requesting one, and we'd be happy to leave one in the legal office for someone to look at if they like.
That was my point, I guess. Okay, it is available to the public if they want to.
Indeed it is.
Thank you.
Further discussion? If not, you've heard the motion. Would the secretary call the roll, please? Ms. Smith.
Mr. Burke?
Aye.
Mrs. Haver?
Aye.
Mr. Heath?
No.
Mrs. Mrs. McGrath?
No.
Mr. Saar?
Aye.
Mr. Gutierrez?
Aye. By a vote of 4 to 2, motion passes. 16.2. Approve Phoenix College Preparatory Academy and Gateway Early College High School proposals for salary increases 2016-2017. Vice Chancellor Shelton Johnson.
President Gutierrez, members of the board, it is recommended and requested that the governing board authorize compensation adjustments for fiscal year 16-17 effective July 2nd for Phoenix College Preparatory Academy and Gateway Early College High School. The employees that are on the charter high school pay schedule and are classroom teachers at Phoenix College Prep and Gateway Early College will receive a 7% increase. Those employees who are also at these locations but function as student support personnel will receive a 4% increase not to exceed the top of their pay scale. All current salary structures for staff and faculty will remain unchanged. As an educational institution, we are concerned about student retention, and certainly as an employer, we are concerned about employee retention. Salary adjustments are a necessary part of our organization's efforts to both attract and retain highly qualified employees. Proposition 123 that was recently passed by the citizens of Arizona is intended to infuse money into the classrooms, which includes higher salaries for teachers.
Thank you, Ms. Shelton Johnson. Is there any discussion on this matter?
Sure.
Mr. Saar.
Just for clarification, Proposition 123 does not affect the community colleges at all.
Correct. It would just be the high school, or
the two charter schools.
Right.
two charter schools within Maricopa, yes.
Because they're the K-12s.
Correct.
I want to make sure that, the raises where they're getting are primarily due to Proposition 123.
Yes.
Which down the road may not be there. So, but we've had discussions about that, and the administration feels confident that they can deal with any reduction in those funds down the road.
That is correct.
You've heard the discussion. Is there a motion?
I move approval.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Information item and first readings. Vice Chancellor Shelton Johnson.
Thank you, President Gutierrez, members of the board. For the period of May 2015, we had a total of 32 hires and 34 separations.
Is there any questions? Ms. McGrath.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Shelton Johnson, we have been having a large decrease in student population. We currently have it figured as a 13% decline, and I think with this coming fall enrollment, it will probably be even more. Yet we seem to replace and replace and replace. Have we left any positions unfilled in the district?
We certainly do have vacancies throughout the district. You will see from the numbers this month that, and I think to your point, as people are exiting, for the most part, we are filling those positions. I would have to look to see if we have specific data to provide you. I don't have anything other than anecdotal information at this point to say. Certainly we have vacancies, but I don't know what our vacancy rate is.
Do we have any plans to reduce the employee level commensurate with the student enrollment level?
We have not had any discussions, or Mrs. McGrath, members of the board, we have not had any discussions to that effect.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further discussion? If not, we'll go on to first readings. President Dale.
Mr. Gutierrez, members of the board, on behalf of Chancellor Marie Harper Merrick, I offer for the first reading tonight language policy change for the Workforce and Economic Development Board outcomes. We have gone through a policy meeting discussion of these outcomes. Mr. Saar, members of the workforce development staff at the district level have exchanged best practices and ideas surrounding these outcomes. And on behalf of Chancellor Marie Harper Marinick, we are bringing forward for first reading to allow discussion and respond to questions related to these outcomes. It is our opinion that these outcomes provide much clearer direction for workforce development and economic development. And ultimately, there will be metrics that will be attached to each one of these workforce and economic development outcomes, which will provide the board with clear measures as to progress towards accomplishing these outcomes. So with that, I would hand it back to the board and certainly entertain questions or comments.
Questions or comments? Mr. Saar.
And I want to thank Dr. Harper Marinick and all the staff people involved in this, as well as our resident editor and an English writer who wordsmithed it appropriately. So thank you, Mr. Burke. Two things on the that will be up in the next meeting for approval. One is to basically erase our current workforce development policies, and the second one is to replace it with the new one. And we've had discussions about the 7 items that are, I believe it's 7, that are on the current proposal, and the last 2 in the order that they're presented tonight are kind of questionable, and I appreciate the work that everybody's done on this. So I would ask the board to look at those 2 and determine if they are appropriate as outcomes when they, and they are for the audience. One talks about making sure that our career and technical education staff are appropriately certified. And the second one is that in our career and technical education programs, that students are being trained and taught on equipment that is current and that really relies heavily on our ability as a board to finance and keep those machines current. So I think it's appropriate to look at those last two more critically, and maybe even look at those down the road in adding them to our chancellor's limitations, because they could be considered limitations. I don't think anybody feels that we shouldn't have staff that's adequately certified to teach the subject matter in career and technical education, as opposed to how we are looking at our faculty in the areas of academics. I think there's two separate ways of looking at that, but in order to accomplish the other five, you need to have quality instruction. And I think inherent in those other five is the requirement to have appropriately certified staff. However, if that is something that the board wants to put into a limitation, I think that's doable. In terms of adding the item regarding keeping current on our equipment and our training methods, we know that, especially in the healthcare areas, that faculty and staff really like the expensive, I call them dummies, but they're really, what do you call them? Mannequins. It sure it makes our ability to instruct those skills doable, where we would have to look for numerous locations around the valley to put students in an active area. So it's enabled us to do a much better job of meeting the needs of our industry, especially in the healthcare areas. But it is expensive. So to put the burden of keeping that kind of high-end equipment in front of our students on the chancellor, when the chancellor has to live within the budget that the board sets, might not be appropriate. So I think the board is encouraged to think about those last two in more detail.
Let me point out that the mannequins aren't the kind you remember at Penny's big window. They're a little bit more modern than that. Anyway, monitoring reports, the business, or rather the budget analysis report, Ms. Granillo.
Yes, Mr. President and members of the board, this is a report of the activity in the general fund through May 31st, 2016, and collections of revenues as well as expenditures are pretty much in line with those in past years, as I think we've been reporting throughout the year. We do expect to meet the financial stability requirement of 8% of projected general fund revenues. When the board returns in August, we will present the preliminary burn report for the year ended June 30, 2016, as we will be in the process of closing out the fiscal year.
Any questions? Discussion? If not, let's go to community linkage. Mr. Burke.
I was pleased to go to Mesa Community College early this month for a reception for Dr. Pan, who is leaving the district to become the chancellor of the Seattle Community Colleges district. The community was there, a number of people from the community. I always admired Dr. Pan, but after listening to all the people in the communities, I discovered that he was doing much more than we realized. Just a wonderful tribute to him. Mr. Heap and I attended the Audit and Finance Committee this month, and Ms. Haver and I were part of a search committee for the new legal counsel, and we met yesterday for our initial meeting.
Mr. Sarr.
Yeah, this month of June has been somewhat of a reprieve from May, where we had all the commencement and graduation, but it gives us a chance to spend some time with faculty and others that are hanging out here in the campuses, which I appreciate. We also attended several goodbye sessions to some of our staff that are leaving us for better pastures. At least they hope they are. And I want to just congratulate them for being selected to their new positions in leadership positions around the country. It's good to know that the quality of our staff here at all levels is thought that highly of throughout the country, and I've been privileged to have those people here as long as we did. You can see from the substitutes that we have, that they're all busy at different things. The lone person who is actually a president, welcome. And your day will come, I'm sure. But thank you.
Is that good or bad?
That's good.
Ms. Haver.
I would like to mention that I attended one last graduation ceremony. It was Gateway Charter School. I'm getting old, my brain doesn't work so well. This ceremony really touched me deeply. There were 700 people, over 700 people in attendance for 46 students. Of those 46 students, 12 of them received their associate's degree at the same time, or they had already received them. And most of those young people came from families where neither father nor mother had graduated from high school. And as we walked down the middle aisle, I was right behind Miss Smith. I saw these faces of these really happy people. They just were lit up. I just was astounded at this experience. And the students were so impressive. They gave their speeches, and when Mr. Saar and I were both introduced as board members, and Ms. Smith mentioned that I'd been an ESL teacher and supported K through 12 education, and everybody, I had a huge ovation over that, and I thought, you know, that really feels good. That's just because I'm glad I did that all those years, and I really can't say it had anything to do with what had happened at that school, of course, but it was quite touching to me. And one more thing, I ran into a friend who has had a lot of problems with her son, and so I quit asking about him. He barely made it through high school. He didn't even go to the high school graduation. And he got into drugs, and he just seemed to be kind of just floating around. And she hadn't talked about him for quite a while, a few years. She says, guess what? My Matt graduated from Scottsdale Community College. And she said all the family came, and would you believe there were these asterisks by his name. He graduated with honors. And she said he really applied himself. He had to take developmental classes, and he did. He used every imaginable tool he could find to get through. And he had actually accomplished the associate's degree requirements in January, but there were a couple other classes he wanted to take. And this was a kid whose teacher of his in high school had told him would never amount to anything. And, you know, I'm glad that he met teachers that encouraged him and made such a difference. One kid that I heard about, and how many more out there that we don't hear about. We have to keep remembering we're really accomplishing something. And it, you know, little by little, we're making a huge difference in this world.
Mr. Heap.
I want to say thank you to everybody for allowing me to celebrate with them. Dr. Pan, Dr. Harper Marinick. We had a great time looking at the future. And the rest of the month has been taken up with administration. So some of it I can talk about and some of it I can't. But hey, my bright spot of everything here is my daughter is moving back into Arizona, and they're here. They're living with us now. They're buying a home, and she came through the system here and received her master's degree. And her daughter, and she's tracking her daughters right now, which are 8 and 10, through to the community college. So here we go, and this is going to be an enjoyable future. Thank you, and have a great summer. 1 month of it.
Ms. McGrath.
Thank you. I had the opportunity to attend the graduation ceremony at the University of California at Santa Barbara, and I'd like to say that Estrella Mountain does a much better job. I was very disappointed in this ceremony, and I'm going to miss all of these wonderful people who have gotten great promotions that are moving on, and I'm sorry to see them go, but I'm very glad for their future opportunities.
Thank you, Ms. McGrath. I was scheduled to be in Rome this month, the entire month, and so I had no appointments, none. As people discovered I was still in town, they sort of started calling and calling and calling. But I'm still making every effort to stay away from you. Nothing personally, you understand, and sometime in August I'll be back. Thank you very much. By the way, I didn't go to Europe, but I am going a little later in the year. The Arizona Association of District Governing Boards, Mr. Burke.
You have received information about the Governance Institute for Student Success, which will be held September 8 and 9. The AADGB is still working on the planning for that. Our next meeting is in September.
Mr. Burke, where is that going to be? Have we decided on the location?
It will be at the Corporate College.
Corporate College. Arizona School Boards Association, Mr. Sarr.
Nothing much to report on. Obviously, Prop 123 was a big element in the last couple of months, and the implementation of that in the K-12 budgets is now being adopted as we did here tonight.
Association of Community College Trustees, ACCT, Mr. Sarr.
We're getting a lot of information regarding the upcoming October Congress in New Orleans. I hope that all board members can at least make an attempt to be there. It's going to be, based on what I've heard so far, another exceptional Congress when it comes to learning more about what happens across the nation in our community college world.
The next meeting dates, times, and places, August 9th, 3 p.m., Policy Committee, Governing Boardroom. August 9, 4:35 p.m., Agenda Review, Governing Boardroom. August 9, 5:35 p.m., Board Retreat, Governing Boardroom. August 23rd, Budget and Finance Committee, 5:30 p.m. August 23rd, 6:30 p.m., regular Governing Board meeting. If there is no further business before us, this meeting is adjourned.